I was threatened by my mom to hand her golden child a business partner title. I refused, cut off their money, and let revenge brutally expose their greed. Alright, so here's a story I never thought I'd have to put out there, but man, sometimes life just throws stuff at you and you need to vent. My name's Dave and I'm 43 now, but this all started when I was a kid. I grew up dirt poor. Not, oh, we can't afford that toy poor. I mean, like, are we going to have enough food to eat this week? Kind of poor. See, my mom, Karen, had me when she was just 15. My dad bailed the second he found out she was pregnant. Classic. Her parents kicked her out too. They were ashamed, I guess, that their teenage daughter was knocked up, so they just washed their hands of her. That left my mom to fend for herself with a newborn. No family support, no friends who could really help, just her and me against the world. Growing up like that, I knew I had to work my way out of it. We didn't have much of a choice. My mom did her best, working multiple jobs, but even that wasn't enough. I remember there were days when she'd skip meals just so I could eat. I could see how tired she was, but she kept going. It was like she was running on fumes, but no matter what, she never quit. By the time I was old enough to understand, I knew I had to do something. I didn't want to live like that forever. I wasn't going to be another statistic of poverty or whatever. I wanted more, you know? So, as soon as I hit 18, I started working whatever job I could get. I wasn't picky. If it paid, I'd do it. Didn't matter if it was cleaning toilets, stacking shelves, or delivering packages. I just wanted to keep us afloat. Looking back now, I don't even know how I managed to keep up with it all. I was pulling shifts day and night, trying to juggle 3 or 4 jobs at a time, barely sleeping, just grinding day after day. But when you've been hungry before, you don't forget what that feels like. It sticks with you. It's like this constant reminder that you can't go back. I was young, though, full of energy, and the fear of going back to where we came from kept me going. So, it was during one of these jobs, probably my third one at the time, that I met Tony. He was like the guy you see in movies, the self-made man. He started with nothing but managed to build himself a small empire in construction. Tony was in his late 40s then, but he had this energy, like he was still out there hustling every day. People respected him because they knew he wasn't some rich guy born with money. He earned every penny. I don't know why Tony took a liking to me, but he did. Maybe he saw something in me, the same hunger he had when he was starting out. He'd give me advice here and there, nothing major at first, just small tips on how to handle myself, how to talk to people, how to negotiate, stuff like that. But I paid attention to everything he said. It wasn't long before I realized this guy was a gold mine of information. The more I talked to Tony, the more I realized that working for someone else was never going to get me where I wanted to go. I needed to create something of my own, something I could build from the ground up. But I was 20 and broke, with no real direction other than the fact that I wanted to make something happen. So, I started brainstorming business ideas, and after a few months, I came up with a plan for my own construction company. It wasn't some revolutionary idea or anything, but I knew I could make it work if I had the right support. The thing was, I had no money to even start, and that's when I decided to pitch my idea to Tony. I figured if he shot it down, at least I'd learned something from the experience. But to my surprise, he didn't shoot it down. He liked it. He said I had potential and he decided to back me, not with money right away, but with his advice and connections. And let me tell you, that was worth more than any startup loan I could have gotten from a bank. With Tony's guidance, I started my first small business, a construction firm. At first, I was doing everything by myself, taking small jobs and barely making enough to scrape by. But it was mine. Every day I pushed a little harder and slowly things started to grow. It wasn't some overnight success story, far from it. I spent years hustling, working 80-hour weeks, doing whatever it took to make it work. Tony eventually invested some of his own money into the business, but more than anything, he invested time. He taught me everything he knew about running a business. I absorbed everything like a sponge. Slowly but surely we expanded. 1 crew turned into 2, 2 crews turned into 5, and before I knew it, I had a company that was running multiple projects across the city. The thing about success is that it sneaks up on you. 1 minute you're grinding every day, barely making ends meet, and then one day you look up and you realize you've built something real. That's what happened with me. My company kept growing, and soon enough we weren't just taking small jobs. We were doing full-blown commercial projects. We had contracts with big companies, city projects, all kinds of stuff. I won't lie, it felt good to finally see the fruits of all that hard work. But while my business was thriving, my personal life wasn't as smooth. See, my mom never really got out of the poverty mindset. Even after I started making money, she always acted like we were still one step away from losing everything. And my brother Nick, well, he was a whole different problem. Nick's 3 years younger than me, and let's just say he didn't follow the same path I did. While I was working my tail off to build something, Nick was getting into trouble, skipping jobs, hanging out with the wrong crowd. He didn't have that fire in him like I did, and even though I tried to help him out when I could, it never seemed to stick. I'd offer him work at my company, but he never took it seriously. That's where things started to go wrong, I guess. No matter how much I succeeded, there was always this tension between me and my family, like they didn't really understand what it took for me to get here. And well, that's the setup for what went down recently, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll save the rest for later. Let's just say family and business don't always mix as well as you'd hope. So here's where things really went off the rails. I was visiting my mom the other week, and I could already tell something was up. You know that vibe you get when someone's going to ask for something and it's not going to be small? Yeah, that was all over the room when I walked in. I was bracing for it. I thought she'd probably ask for help with some bills again. Maybe for Nick too, since he was crashing with her as usual. But man, what she actually said threw me for a loop. She sat me down at the kitchen table looking all serious and started going on about how Nick's been struggling. Now, this ain't news. Nick's always struggling. Dude's never had his act together, not since we were kids. But then she hits me with, I think you should make Nick a partner in your business. I almost choked on my own spit. I was like, wait, what? She looked dead serious, like this was a normal thing to ask. Like I could just snap my fingers and hand over half of everything I'd worked my ass off for, as if running a business was like handing someone a toy. I didn't even know how to respond for a second. I just sat there staring at her, trying to figure out if she was joking or if she had just completely lost it. But no, she was serious. She starts telling me how the jobs I gave Nick before weren't good enough for him. That's why he never stuck around, apparently. She said it was embarrassing for her to see her son, the brother of a successful business owner, working low-level jobs. According to her, Nick needed a title, something that would give him respect. I guess flipping burgers or managing a store wasn't flashy enough for the golden boy. Now, let me break this down for you. Nick's my half-brother, but I always just called him my brother. We grew up together, but we couldn't be more different. He never had ambition, never wanted to put in the work. He's always looking for the easy way out, always expecting someone else to bail him out. I've tried to help him before. Hell, I gave him jobs at my company, even though Tony, my mentor, told me it was a bad idea from the start. But Nick would show up late, slack off, and then disappear when he realized he wasn't getting a fat paycheck right away. The dude worked for me for like a week total before bailing. And now my mom thinks I should just make him a partner, like he's earned it. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I told her, Mom, you know I can't just hand out positions like that. Nick doesn't have any experience. He doesn't even stick around long enough to learn the basics. Making him a partner would be the worst decision for the business. She didn't like that answer. She went straight to, but he's your brother. You're supposed to help him. I told her I've tried helping him. I've given him jobs. I've offered to train him for higher positions if he'd actually stick with something. But every time he flakes, I'm not going to put the entire business at risk just because he's family. This business isn't just my livelihood. It's also hundreds of other people's. I can't throw it all away to give Nick some fake title to make him feel better about himself. That's when things took a turn. My mom, who I've been supporting financially for years, I'm talking paying her mortgage, her car loan, and sending her money every month, starts accusing me of using my money to control them. She said I was only giving them just enough to keep them dependent on me, that I didn't really want Nick to succeed because I was afraid of him becoming independent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've been bending over backward to help both of them for years. Nick has gotten more second chances than anyone I know, and every time he's blown it, and now my mom's accusing me of holding him back. I tried to explain it again, tried to stay calm, but she wasn't having any of it. She got more and more heated, saying I didn't care about family, that all I cared about was money. Then she hit me with the ultimatum. Either I make Nick a partner or she would disown me. Yep. My own mother gave me an ultimatum: make Nick a partner or I'm out of the family. Like, what? This woman, who I've been supporting for God knows how long, was ready to kick me to the curb because I wouldn't hand my business over to my lazy brother. I tried to reason with her. I told her that I wasn't going to make a decision that would ruin everything I'd worked for just because she thought Nick deserved it. I told her that I'd given Nick more chances than he deserved, and every time he threw them away. Making him a partner wouldn't help him. It would only hurt me and everyone who works for me. But she wasn't hearing any of it. She kept going, saying I wasn't real family if I didn't support my brother, that I was selfish and greedy. Honestly, I was starting to lose it at this point. I asked her straight up, "Are you seriously going to disown me because I won't make Nick a partner after everything I've done for you?" She didn't even hesitate. She said yes. She said I didn't deserve to be part of the family if I couldn't commit to their success. That's when I knew I was done. I told her fine. If she wanted to disown me, I wasn't going to fight it. If my worth to her was based on how much I could give Nick, then I didn't need to be part of that family anymore. I stormed out of the house, fuming, with her screaming after me. I didn't look back. Not this time. Now it's been a few days and I can't stop thinking about it. I keep replaying that conversation in my head, trying to make sense of it. I gave them everything. I worked my ass off to get to where I am today, and instead of being proud, they want more. They want me to risk everything I've built just to make Nick feel better about himself. I don't know. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong here, but it feels like I've been nothing but a wallet to them for years. And the second I say no, I'm the bad guy. I guess that's just how family is sometimes. You think you're doing the right thing and they're over there thinking about what else they can get out of you. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all, but I guess that's where we're at right now. All right, so after that whole mess with my mom giving me the ultimatum, I was just done, like really done. I walked out of there thinking, okay, I guess I'm out of the family now. It sounds harsh, but honestly, what else was I supposed to do? She made her choice, right? Anyway, a few days went by and I was still feeling pissed off about the whole thing. It wasn't even about the money, you know? I've always helped out where I could. It was the principle of it, how she thought she could just bully me into giving Nick something he didn't deserve. Like, does she really think I built this business just to hand it over to my brother who can't even hold down a regular job? I didn't hear from my mom for about a week after that argument. I guess she was waiting for me to come to my senses or something, but that wasn't happening. I wasn't about to just roll over and give in. Not this time. So, I decided to make a decision for myself, one that was long overdue. I canceled all the financial support I had set up for her. Yeah, that's right. No more paying her mortgage, no more covering her car payments, and no more sending her that monthly check. I know it sounds cold, but honestly, I felt like it was time for her to figure things out on her own. For years I had been covering all her major bills, and she acted like it was nothing, like she was entitled to it just because she was my mom. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind helping out family when they're in a tough spot. But this was different. She'd become dependent on me, and I realized she didn't appreciate any of it. She just expected it. I canceled everything. I didn't tell her. I didn't warn her. I figured she'd find out soon enough when the bills started rolling in. And let me tell you, it didn't take long. About a month later, I come home from work, and guess who's sitting on my doorstep? My mom. At first I thought, great, here we go again. But surprisingly, she didn't start yelling the second she saw me. In fact, she seemed calm. Maybe calm isn't the right word, but she wasn't her usual confrontational self. She just said hi and asked how I was doing like nothing had happened. I stood there for a second, totally confused, like, was this some kind of trick? I asked her straight up, "What are you doing here?" She looked at me like I was the crazy one and said, "What do you mean? I'm your mother. I came to see you," but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I crossed my arms and told her, "I didn't expect to see you since you disowned me and all." She looked taken aback for a second, but then she smiled like she thought we were playing some kind of game. "Oh, people say things when they're angry," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. I wasn't having it. I wasn't raised like that. When I say something, I mean it. I shot back, and I could tell that got to her because her smile dropped real quick. She told me to stop being petty and that I needed to grow up. Typical, right? Now I knew why she was really there. I turned to unlock the door and tried to get inside before things escalated, but she followed me and tried to push her way in. I wasn't having that either. So I just shut the door in her face and locked it. That's when she lost it. She started banging on the door, screaming at me to let her in. I could hear her trying to shake the door like she was about to rip it off its hinges. It was insane. I just sat on the floor inside, leaning against the wall, listening to her freak out. Part of me felt bad. I mean, she's still my mom, right? But at the same time, I knew I couldn't let her push me around anymore. I wasn't just some cash cow she could manipulate with guilt trips and threats. I hoped she'd realize that after I didn't respond to her yelling. Eventually, she stopped banging and lowered her voice. I could barely hear her through the door, but she finally got to the point. "What about the mortgage? What about the car?" There it was. That was what she really cared about. Not me, not our relationship, just the money. I took a deep breath and told her through the door, "Your other son, can take care of that now." There was silence after that. I almost thought she had left. But when I looked through the peephole, she was still standing there. I could tell she was thinking hard about what to say next. Finally, she admitted it. "Nick can't pay for any of it. He doesn't have the money." And there it was, the truth. Nick couldn't handle any of the responsibilities she thought he deserved. I knew it, she knew it, but she still expected me to keep bailing them out. I told her that it wasn't my problem anymore. I was done paying for their bad decisions. By this point, I had a pounding headache, so I went upstairs to take some aspirin, hoping she'd be gone by the time I got back. After a while, I came back down, and sure enough, she was gone. I felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief because I didn't have to deal with the drama anymore, but frustration because I knew this wasn't the end of it. My mom doesn't just give up like that. She's persistent, stubborn even. I knew she'd be back and probably with more demands, but for now at least I had a little bit of peace. It's weird, though. Even after everything, part of me still feels guilty. I don't know why. I've done more for them than most people would, but somehow I still feel like the bad guy. It's like no matter how much I give, it's never enough. They always want more. And it's not just about money, it's about control. My mom wants to control me and she's using Nick to try to do it, but I'm not playing that game anymore. I've got my own life to live, my own business to run, and I can't let them drag me down with their endless problems. I've done my part, more than my part, and now it's time for them to figure things out on their own. I guess we'll see what happens next. Update 1. So fast forward a bit, and I thought maybe, just maybe, things were starting to calm down. I hadn't heard from my mom in a little while, and for a second I let myself believe that maybe she had backed off. But of course that was way too hopeful. One day I'm at work, just minding my own business, when I get a call from security at my office building. They're telling me that someone's in the parking lot causing a scene. Now, I already had a pretty good idea who it was before they even told me. Sure enough, when I step outside, there they are, my mom and Nick. Nick looked rough, like really rough. The dude's never really taken care of himself, but this was bad. His hair was a mess, his clothes were hanging off him, and he had this wild look in his eyes, like he was desperate. My mom, on the other hand, was looking the same as always, except she was standing there, arms crossed, ready for a fight. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there waiting for them to start. Nick was the first one to speak, and honestly, I couldn't even take him seriously. He starts off by yelling, "You abandoned us! You left Mom to suffer! How could you do that?" I sighed. I knew where this was going, and I didn't want to engage, but at the same time I couldn't just stand there and take it. So I told him straight up, "Mom disowned me, remember? This isn't on me. She made her choice." But Nick wasn't hearing any of it. He stepped right up to me, getting in my face, and I could smell the anger and desperation on him. He was so worked up he actually grabbed my shirt and tried to shake me. Now, I'm not some huge guy, but I take care of myself. Nick, not so much, so he didn't really get anywhere with that. Still, I wasn't in the mood to fight. I just wanted him to back off. So I said, "Nick, get out of my way." That's when he sucker punched me. Yeah, you read that right. My own brother swung at me out of nowhere. He caught me off guard and I stumbled back a bit, more out of shock than anything else. But once I realized what had just happened, instinct took over. I hit him back, and let's just say he didn't stay standing. He hit the ground hard. That's when my mom jumped in, screaming like I was the one who started it. She rushed over to Nick, holding out her arms like she was protecting him, and then she turned to me with that same glare she used to give me when I was a kid and had done something wrong. "You're a monster!" she screamed. "You're supposed to help your family, not attack them!" I wiped the blood from my lip and straightened my shirt, trying to stay calm. "He hit me first," I said. But it didn't matter. She wasn't listening. It's like she'd already made up her mind about who the villain was in this whole situation, and surprise, surprise, it was me. I looked down at Nick, who was still sitting there rubbing his jaw, and I felt this weird mix of anger and pity. Like, part of me wanted to feel bad for him, but at the same time, how many chances was I supposed to give him? How many times was I supposed to let him drag me down before I just said enough? I took a deep breath and looked at both of them. "I never want to see either of you here again, unless you're coming to apologize. You made your decision. Now you have to live with it." My mom started crying, really crying, and she begged me to change my mind, but I wasn't having it. I told her I was done, that I wasn't going to be responsible for their bad choices anymore. "Nick has made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. I've spent years trying to help you both," I said, "and all you've done is throw it back in my face. I've paid for your house, your car, everything, and what do I get in return? This, I'm done." I could see it in her eyes that she wasn't expecting this. I don't think she ever thought I'd actually stand my ground. She always figured she could guilt me into caving, but not this time. This time I was serious, and I think that's what scared her the most. Nick was trying to get up at this point, and I could see he was embarrassed. I didn't want to humiliate him, but I also wasn't going to let him just walk all over me anymore. He'd burned too many bridges, and I wasn't about to rebuild them for him. I'm not your punching bag anymore, I told them both. I've worked too hard for what I have to let you destroy it. And with that, I turned and walked back inside the building. I didn't even look back. As I headed up to my office, my phone started buzzing. It was my mom, of course, calling nonstop, probably to scream at me some more, but I didn't pick up. I didn't want to hear it. I was done. When I finally got to my desk, I sat down and just stared at my phone for a while, watching the missed call notifications pile up. Part of me felt like I should answer, like I should give them one more chance. But then I remembered everything they'd put me through, everything I'd done for them, and how they never appreciated any of it. No, I wasn't going to answer. I blocked their numbers right then and there. It felt strange, like I was cutting off a piece of my life. But at the same time, it was freeing. I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. They had to figure things out on their own. Later that night, I got a text from my assistant. She told me that security had escorted my mom and Nick off the property and they'd been told not to come back. I felt a weird sense of relief knowing that they couldn't just show up and ambush me like that again. It was over, at least for now. I sat there in my office for a long time after that, just thinking about how things had gotten to this point, about whether I'd made the right decisions, about what would happen next. But mostly I just thought about how tired I was, tired of being the responsible one, tired of being the one who had to fix everything, tired of being the one they blamed when things didn't go their way. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. It was over. Update 2. A few weeks passed and things finally started to feel normal again. I hadn't heard from my mom or Nick since that last encounter, and honestly I was hoping it would stay that way for a while. I didn't need any more drama, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could just focus on my business without being dragged into their mess. But of course, life doesn't work like that. One afternoon, I was at home after a long day of meetings, just trying to relax, when there was a knock at the door. At first I didn't think much of it. I get packages delivered all the time, and maybe it was just that. But when I opened the door, there was Nick, and he didn't look like the guy who had sucker punched me in the parking lot. This version of Nick was different. He was standing there with both hands raised like he was surrendering. He looked sober for the first time in forever, and there was this weird mix of desperation and sadness on his face. Part of me wanted to slam the door right then and there, but I didn't. Something about the way he was standing there made me pause. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let him in. He walked in slowly, looking around like he was afraid something was going to jump out at him. We sat down at the kitchen table and there was this long, awkward silence before he finally spoke. "I'm not here to fight," he said, almost like he was convincing himself more than me. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to be what I expected. Nick took a deep breath and started talking. "Mom's going to lose the house," he said quietly. "The foreclosure notice came today." He wasn't looking at me, just staring at his hands. "She doesn't know what to do." I leaned back in my chair, feeling that old, familiar frustration building up again. I mean, I knew this was coming. Of course, it was only a matter of time before the bills caught up with her, but still, hearing it was different. Part of me wanted to say, "Not my problem," and send him on his way. But another part of me, the part that remembered all those years growing up in poverty with Mom, couldn't quite shut it down that easily. "What do you expect me to do, Nick?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I told you both I'm not bailing you out anymore." Nick looked up at me for the first time since he walked in. "I know," he said, his voice cracking a little. "I know you're done, and I don't blame you. But I'm not here to ask for money. I just want help figuring this out. I don't know what to do." That hit me harder than I expected. Nick wasn't here to demand anything. He wasn't here to guilt-trip me or throw a tantrum like usual. He was here because he was scared, and for once he was actually asking for advice, not a handout. I sighed and rubbed my temples. "All right," I said finally. "What's the situation with the house?" Nick explained that the foreclosure process had started, and they had maybe a month or two before they'd be evicted. The mortgage payments hadn't been made in months, and there was no way they could come up with the money to stop it. Mom was panicking, obviously, but she wasn't doing anything about it, just sitting there hoping it would somehow fix itself. Classic. "I can't stop the foreclosure," I said, leaning forward, "but maybe I can help with finding her somewhere to live once it's over." Nick nodded, and for a second he looked like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. "That's all I'm asking," he said. Just help me figure out where she can go. She can't stay with me. I can barely keep a roof over my head." I thought about it for a moment. "I'll cover 6 months of rent for a small apartment," I said. "Something manageable. After that, you and Mom are on your own. I'm not getting sucked back into this." Nick didn't argue. In fact, he actually seemed relieved. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That's more than I expected." We sat there in silence for a few minutes, the weight of everything hanging between us. I could feel the tension easing, but it was still there just under the surface. I didn't know if this was the start of some kind of resolution or if it was just another chapter in the long, exhausting saga of trying to keep my family from falling apart. But for now, it felt like a step forward. Before Nick left, he looked at me and said something I didn't expect. "I know I've screwed up," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I know I haven't been the brother you needed. I want to try and fix things. I don't want to end up like Mom." I didn't say anything at first. What was I supposed to say? It wasn't like an apology was going to erase all the years of frustration and resentment, but at the same time I could see that he meant it. For once, Nick was actually trying. "I hope you do," I said finally. "But you've got to figure that out on your own. I can't keep fixing everything for you." Nick nodded and left without another word. After he was gone, I sat there for a long time just thinking about how things had gotten so messed up between us, how I spent my whole life trying to be the responsible one while Nick just floated along, never really taking control of his life. And now here we were, trying to navigate this mess of a family dynamic that had always felt like a ticking time bomb. I don't know if things are ever going to get better with Nick. Maybe this is the first step in the right direction, or maybe it's just more of the same. But at least this time it feels like I'm finally setting some boundaries, finally taking control of my own life instead of letting them drag me down with theirs. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe they'll figure it out, maybe they won't. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally doing what's best for me. And that's something. Update 3. Alright, here's an update for you guys. After everything that went down with my mom and Nick, I've been trying to distance myself from all the drama. It's been hard because they're still family and part of me feels bad about cutting them off. But at the same time, I had to draw a line somewhere. So fast forward a couple of weeks. Things had been quiet. I was actually starting to think maybe this time they'd finally backed off for good. Boy, was I wrong. One evening, I'm sitting at home after work, just unwinding, when I get this text from a random number. Turns out it's my cousin. Now, I haven't heard from this guy in years, so I'm thinking, what's going on? He asks if I've heard about Nick. At this point, I just roll my eyes, figuring it's the usual crap. Nick getting into trouble or asking for money, but this time it's different. My cousin tells me that Nick's been telling everyone in the family that I ruined his life, that I'm the reason he's broke, jobless, and basically failing at everything. Apparently Nick's been playing the victim, saying I refused to help him when he was at his lowest, and now he's got people in the family feeling sorry for him. Like, are you kidding me? I've spent years trying to help him, giving him opportunities, and every single time he either bailed or messed it up. So now I've got family members texting me asking why I won't help my poor brother when he needs it most. One aunt even had the nerve to say, "Family comes first, Dave. You should put aside your differences and help him." Like, where were these people when I was working 80-hour weeks, building a business from scratch, and trying to keep us all afloat? Now they want to chime in. I try to ignore it, but it's eating away at me. I feel like I'm the bad guy again, even though all I've done is say no after years of yes. But here's the kicker. I'm not backing down this time. I'm not letting them guilt trip me into fixing Nick's problems. He's an adult and he needs to face the consequences of his own choices. Then a few days later, I get another knock on my door. Yep, you guessed it, Nick. And this time he's not alone. He brought one of our cousins with him. Like having backup is going to change my mind or something. I open the door and just stand there waiting for them to start. Nick doesn't waste any time. He starts in on how I've abandoned him, how I'm letting him drown while I sit back with all my success. I don't say anything at first because honestly I'm tired. Tired of the same old story, tired of the manipulation. But my cousin jumps in and says, "Dave, you can't just leave your family like this. We're supposed to stick together." I finally lose it. I tell them straight up, I've done more than enough for Nick. He's had every opportunity I've given him and he's thrown them all away. I'm not responsible for fixing his life anymore. He's got to figure this out on his own. Nick starts getting defensive, saying it's not his fault, that he's just had bad luck. And that's when I tell him, "No, Nick, it's not bad luck. It's bad decisions. Every time I tried to help you, you either didn't take it seriously or bailed when it got hard. I'm done bailing you out." It gets quiet after that. I think they realized I wasn't going to budge. My cousin, still trying to play peacemaker, says, "We're just worried about him, Dave." But I'm done worrying. I told them both that I'm not going to keep enabling Nick's behavior, and if they want to help him, they can do it without me. They left after that, and I haven't heard from them since. But honestly, I feel good about it. For the first time, I stood my ground without feeling guilty about it. They can say what they want, but I'm not responsible for Nick's choices anymore. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I've got no idea what's going to happen next, but at least I'm finally taking control of my own life.